But it was so nice for Mrs. Ivinson to invite me to the mansion today. I'm Diana Brown, and I came from Ireland when I was 18 years old. I was born in County Clare, and there my dad was a heron and my mother was a Shannon. And the Shannon River in County Clare is named for that family. The Herons and the Shannons are two of the oldest families in County Clare. So why is it that I wound up here in Laramie? Well, my dad had died, and in those days, the estate had to go to the oldest male. And my oldest brother had disappeared. We couldn't find him anywhere. So the Crown confiscated our estate and left my mom destitute with my brother and my sister and I. So she decided in 1860 to immigrate to America, and so we did. So when we came, Michael joined the Union and fought. And after the war, I met my Jackson and I married him. Now Jackson also fought in the Union. He was from Illinois, but he joined the Union in Webster, Missouri. And that is where we got married, was in Missouri. But he also stayed in the Union after the war was over. And he was a teamster and gradually became a wagon master in Missouri and Kansas. So my dear Anne was my firstborn, and she was born in Missouri. And then I had my next child, Josephine, in Kansas, in Leavenworth. And that is where my sister lived with her husband. And then we continued across, and we arrived in Laramie in 1867. My husband arrived with Major Belcher, and he was working at Fort Saunders. So finally, my little Jackson was born here in the tent town of Laramie in 1867. Now, Jackson worked for the fort for a little while, but then he bought 40 acres off of Michael Carroll, and we started ranching. And then later, he purchased more land, and we started our ranch in a bigger, grander way, so that he no longer worked for the fort. Unfortunately, we only had 3 years on the ranch. There was an early storm, and it came in, and Jackson went out to take care of the cattle, and he got exposed to the weather, and he died shortly after. Now that left me with my mama and my children. Annie was 13, Josephine was about 9, and then little Jackson was 8 at the time. So we tried to hold on to the ranch. Luckily, I was here in Wyoming. Being from Ireland, it was such an unknown thing, a concept, the fact that I could inherit the land from Jackson. But I did, and we stayed on it for a while. But the following year in August, it became untenable for us to try and hold on to the ranch and run the cattle. So I was able to go through the probate court, and we were able to sell all the cattle on the mare and the colt for $1,860 to Captain Quinn of the 4th Infantry. And that was really great for us. So the arrangement was that he paid us $100 and then another $100 every month at 12% interest for 18 months. And then the following December was when the final payment was due. But that $100 a month allowed me to sit back, regroup, figure out what I really wanted to do. So after that, we decided that I was going to stay. And in 1890, I filed for a homestead, got 160 acres. And then 2 years later, I filed for another homestead, got another 160. And by then, Annie was old enough and she was able to file, and she got 160 acres. So we had a big ranch at that point in time. Now, my girls, God bless them, they took forever to get married. poor Josephine didn't get married until she was in her 40s. However, they both married ranch hands and they were both good Irish lads. So we all worked together to run the ranch, and eventually we had over 1,000 acres in which we were running cattle on and ranching. But at that time also, it was when I think it settled in when in 1890 when I was able to homestead, and between inheriting Mike Jackson's property and then having my own homestead, that is when I decided that this equality that Wyoming gave was really something not to be taken for granted. And that is when I started voting. I cast my first vote in 1890. A lot of the other women voted right away, but I did not start voting until after I had my land and wanted to have a say in what was going on. So time went by, and eventually we all got older. My girls moved away. My son, unfortunately, Jackson, he died young at around 38. He never married. And eventually when I decided to stop ranching and started divesting myself of the land, we had a situation where, you know, Laramie and Cheyenne had been arguing over who was going to be capital, who was going to have the university, etc. And Laramie gave the park land for the university. And I so love the children. And we were not having a lot to do, places to go. So when I started selling off the land, I gave a bit of the land to Laramie. And some of you may know that as Undine Park. It was nice. So that is my claim to fame here in Laramie, is Undine Park, I believe. And I did live to an older age. My girls were with me when I left. It's nice to know that my house is still there on 8th and Steele. I drop in on a wee occasion just to check and see who's living there. You know, it's so nice to see that there were some lawyers living there at one time. I think there's some people that love art right now. They've got some things going on in the yard in the front. I'm really not too sure about that. But if you see me drop in from time to time, don't you be worried. I'm just checking things out and seeing how things have changed here in Laramie. But thank you for having me today, Mrs. Ivinson, the Mansion Suffrage.